So as soon as we opened our booking system, we had 2.5 bookings per minute for the first 24 hours. Our servers crashed. The website crashed. We had so much traffic. I had always wanted to flip a coin to determine the next destination, just like, being spontaneous about it. And so we decided, okay, let's flip a coin. Heads, we go to Eastern Europe. Tails, we go to China. And so we ended up flipping the coin. It landed on heads. So Eastern Europe. First stop was Poland. And that's where we discovered the idea of the beer spa in Zakopane, Poland.
Hey there, and welcome to From the Ground Up Show, the show where we encourage and inspire the next generation of free-thinking leaders by telling the stories of those that have been there, done that, and are still getting it done, building a life that they love with their hearts, their hands, and their hustle. I'm your host, Erick Loden. If you guys could help me out, we're an independent show. I don't have a lot of backing behind me, so you guys sharing this show is the best thing you can do to get the message out there. So if you have a moment, please leave us a 5-star review, leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening on. That goes a long ways moving us up in the algorithm and supporting the show. Pause the show for just a minute, share it with a friend. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share on social media, your favorite podcast platform, and on YouTube. And if you guys are looking for any new seasonal wear, hats, coffee cups, sweatshirts, all the normal stuff, and a few unique items, we have our From the Ground Up Show merchandise store open. That is shop.fromthegroundupshow.com. So today is going to be a fun one for me. I have a couple that I have admired from afar for quite some time joining us, Damien and Jessica Zouaoui. I'm sorry, guys. Can you help me with the last name there?
That's a good shortcut. Zouaoui.
Zouaoui. Okay. Damien and Jessica are the husband and wife founders of Oakwell Beer Spa, one of the most unique hospitality concepts in America. After leaving corporate careers in New York City, they sold their belongings and traveled through 25 countries over 14 months, set out to find an innovative business idea they could build together. Their search eventually led them to a beer spa in Poland, inspiring them to create a new category that combines wellness, hospitality, and craft beer culture. Since opening in Denver in 2021, Oakwell has grown into an award-winning business, expanded into multiple locations, and begun franchising nationwide. Their story is one of entrepreneurship, calculated risk-taking, resilience, and turning an unconventional idea into a scalable business. So, guys, I'm so excited to hear all about your business, where this idea came from, and the adventure you guys have had building what appears to be just an incredible business. But before we dive into that, we like to learn a little bit about our guests. And so we go clear back to the beginning. Do you guys want to each take a moment and tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up, and then maybe how you guys met?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you start first.
Okay, I'll start. So I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. I grew up in I'd say upper middle class family, both had 2 working parents. My mom was in the IT field. My dad tried to be an entrepreneur several times, never really stuck with anything that much, but my mom was definitely the breadwinner in the family. She was working corporate jobs since she was in her early 20s, because back then, people had children really young and had a mortgage really young. So, typical family, but really early on, I had this entrepreneurial bug. And I remember getting a book when I was in elementary school about, starting a small business. And so I decided to create a lemonade stand. And it wasn't going to be just any lemonade stand. It was going to be the best in the neighborhood. And so, I made business cards. I looked at, the traffic flow on the street coming into our neighborhood and how to attract people from the main road and get them in. And mind you, I was in like maybe 4th or 5th grade at the time. I put up flags directing people how to get to our driveway. So really, I've always grown up loving figuring things out, problem solving, inventing things. So I ended up going to college at Florida State University. I studied neuroscience. At the time, my plan was to be a research professor. I, had a dream of winning a Nobel Prize. I really wanted to just study neuroscience. But I ended up not getting into the specific PhD program that I applied to. So I decided to take some time off and join the corporate world. And then my plan was to reapply for the PhD program. But I ended up really loving the job. I joined an IT staffing agency, started out as a recruiter, worked my way up into sales and then into management. And really, I learned so much. I was at the time in my early 20s and I was interacting with these IT directors of Fortune 500 companies that, were way older than me, like way more business savvy than me, but it really allowed me to cut my teeth in the corporate world and learn all the lingo, the acronyms, the org structure, and gave me a lot of great knowledge that I've then carried forth to Oakwell Beer Spa today. But it was after being with that company for 4 years, they offered me a role in New York City. So at this time, I had only lived in Florida. They offered me a year-long contract in New York City to come get that office in shape. It was the worst performing in the country. So I said, hey, I've never been to New York before, but I'm in my 20s and this sounds like a great opportunity. And about 2 weeks into living in New York City is when I met Damien.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, my turn. So my name is Damien. I was born in France, grew up in France. So I was born in Paris, but grew up in southwest of France, very close to Bordeaux. My childhood was very close to my brother. He's as well an entrepreneur on his own. I grew up in a family that was creating their own business, mainly successful or not. That's a very different story, but I'd say that the whole environment was to be a self-starter and ambitious, very focused on the education. We grew up in a way in an environment where school was extremely important. That if you're not bringing back straight A's, we have a different rating in Europe and in France. It's you can have you can spend a bad evening or even the weekend can not be fun. So anyway, focus on the education. And then we moved back to Paris when I was a teenager. And, Paris is a very international city. And I always knew since day one that I wanted to either be a pilot or I wanted to sell oil or water. I don't know why such two important commodities, but I wanted to do that. So with that in mind, unfortunately, pilot wasn't an option for multiple reasons, mainly economic, and I want to get into the army. So I had to make a choice, and the choice was to do a business school over a 5 years period that will really help me to understand what I want to do and what I want to sell, and if I really still want to sell water and oil, which of course when you're young at an age, you have dreams, you're clueless, but business school was very helpful for me to put off my thought process on how to become my own boss will unfold in the future. And this started with, first of all, focusing on learning a different language. In those countries in Europe, there's a lot of countries that translate everything or even have a very strong language. France is one of them. And the English, you can learn English at school, but this is not enough. So I had to self-teach myself English in order to really open myself new doors. So of course, with the support of my business school and the curriculum I've enabled there, but as well being able to open yourself doors by getting scholarship and studying in different countries. Europe is a village. There's so many different programs. So Denmark was one of those countries. Finland was one of those countries. Vietnam, Australia, and I started at the least. I think the last person in the classroom in year 1, and then by year 5, I was the best non-native English speaker in my school, which was for me incredible. Now to that point, learning English has led me to meet someone in Paris at the time. He became my mentor. He's an American businessman, very successful. He sold his business, bumped him in a bar during a soccer game. because we love our soccer. It's a religion there, and from that moment, he kind of like mentor me. This is something very popular in America, but there's no such a mentorship mindset in France culturally. So he kind of like took me under his wing and helped me to create myself opportunities in the US by opening his company to me as almost like the first ever and the last intern that went there for about 6 months in a specific industry, was in the travel industry. And from that moment, I knew that I wanted to create my own business. I had to first make mistakes, learn with the money of others, other companies, right? And then hopefully one day make the big jump. I came in America, in the US in 2013 for the first time, then spent my time between the US, in North America, between the US, the Caribbean, and Mexico, because I was working in the travel industry. And then after that episode, that chapter, I made my way to New York City on my own, helping a small boutique travel company that was focusing on creating experiences in New York City. And I had to learn from scratch everything. I had no budget. Fun fact, I think my boss took a line of credit to sponsor me and take a bet on me in order to afford me. Not that I was expensive, it's just I think I was a last chance for her before she closed her business. And met Jess in New York City very quickly after I started as well. And meeting Jess has definitely been life-changing personally, professionally, and has helped as well to, build confidence at creating your own business, and as well build confidence on making sure that when you create something, you have a positive impact on others. I can spend hours talking about myself. It's not the point, but that's who I am in just a minute or two.
As a former contractor, I know the importance of having what you need, when and where you need it. That is why I always use MacArthur Company. With branches throughout the United States and partnerships with the largest manufacturers, MacArthur is large enough to handle even the most demanding needs. But they are employee-owned and treat each customer with small-town service. The best materials, the best prices, MacArthur Co. Well, I know you guys both mentioned a value in education, that was a big thing to your families. Jess, you talked about pursuing a PhD. Have your views of education shifted at all? Do you still feel a traditional education is as important today as it was then?
It's a great question. I don't think school is valuable for the information that they teach you necessarily. So, I don't think knowing trigonometry is something that's going to value most people in a professional career, or biology, right? But I think what school does teach you is the commitment, is having a schedule, having to, wake up, study, go to class, be somewhere at a certain time. It's more the process of learning than it is the actual content that you learn in school. I do think there are some career paths where an education is absolutely necessary. If you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, there's some things that are quite niche and specific. But, we hear it all the time, entrepreneurs and business owners in specific that never went to school and that, went to the school of hard knocks or whatever you want to call it. I think that can be just as valuable as long as you have something early on that teaches you, to be responsible for yourself, to show up, to work hard, and to be committed to something, whether it's in a formal school environment or not. That depends, but I definitely don't think it's as necessary as it used to be. Like our parents' generation, that's the first thing when you're getting hired that people used to look at was, what degree do you have? What school did you go to? But especially, coming from a recruiting background, that has become less and less important. Nowadays, people look more at your work ethic, and look at your experience rather than the degree that you got or the school that you went to. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the countries and continental. There's countries where it's very crucial to still, as of today, if you don't have a bachelor degree or master degree, you're not gonna get this job just because there's zillions of people who have committed to getting a specific diploma. I think school gives you a baggage, a luggage full of foundations. Those foundations are very important, as you mentioned. It teaches you curiosity, it teaches you resilience, it teaches you commitment, which often you don't get anywhere else. It can be a sports class where your coach asks you to run 20 minutes nonstop, and you want to do it, but the coach and the teacher are here to train you on that. Of course, it depends. You can have a different level of maturity at that time, and you might not know that you don't want that, but it is important. So overall, I think school would always be here, should always be here. We're not gonna get political. There's a lot of things to improve at school, maybe shifting priorities today, take AI and all of those tools that are available to you. But back in the days when the computers went out and we were at school, the computers wasn't here to help you to cheat on it, to look at the encyclopedia in a matter of just a few seconds. I think it was a tool to help us to go deeper into our research and maybe ask questions that the teacher couldn't answer at the same time because they were not in a classroom with you. Well, today, I think the most important thing is to go to school and have the school teaching you how to use those tools available to help with that critical mindset. And I think secondly, school should maybe think as well of teaching you some sorts of topics that helps you in real life. It can be financial literacy. It can be, the simple equation of do not spend more than what you win. Because if you spend more than what you earn, things gonna go wrong and you only have 5 or 10 chances to make it right. So start now, right? All of those things I think are still very important, and hopefully a few teachers, I'm sure, in this country are maybe drafting away from the typical program curriculum and teach you those things. But school are very important, and I think this is something we should teach our kids to stick to it, to commit to it, because what else do you have to do between 5 years old and 16 or 18 years old? In all honesty, I think going to school and creating as all those friendship that will hopefully last forever, that really help help you to create your own identity. You make a lot of mistakes, to meet a lot of people in your life, and the only chance you have to make mistake and learn from it is to do that between 5 years old or until you're 18. Because at 18, then you go to university, you make friends, but it's a very different path because you travel from Colorado maybe to New York State to study. And then after that, you go to ends of you get a job. That's the typical path, right? And you then start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm paying tax. I have a job and my disposable income is now to pay back my loan or have fun. So make those mistakes, go to school, commit to it, prove to yourself that you can last as long as possible to school. Of course, if you're an athlete, if you're the best chef in the world, if you're the best baker in the world, I think you should split your time between 50-50. Make sure you leverage your skills where you're really good at, you practice and improve yourself while making sure that you back yourself up with the right foundations to understand how mathematics, geometry, algorithm, all of that works in order to have a critical mindset and way of seeing things and approaching things in life for the future.
Sounds good. Yeah, I can agree with most of that and appreciate that stance. So, you guys brought us up through, you both got to New York and met each other after each of you had only been there a short time. Did you remain in New York long after you had met?
Yeah, about 2 years.
Yeah. So it's quite funny. We both moved to New York City within a few weeks of each other. Obviously, we didn't know each other at the time. And we met on a dating app. We met on Bumble, which is kind of a fun tidbit that we don't tell many people. But at the time, dating apps were in their prime. We both didn't know many people when we moved to New York City. And really, we hit it off instantly. I mean, from the time that we first met, we became pretty much inseparable. And, we continued working our jobs. I was just there for a year-long contract, after which the deal was, okay, you can, my company said they would allow me to stay in New York after the year, or they would move me back to Florida if I wanted to. So I knew I had that predefined time, but really quickly, Damien and I knew we wanted to open a business together. We're both very entrepreneurial. We have backgrounds that are very complementary to each other. So Damien is the sales and marketing guy. He's very extroverted. He's great with tech. And then I'm on the other side, more behind the scenes. I love analytics. I love HR, legal, finance. So we knew that we have really had all of the bases covered, and that we had both always dreamed of owning our own businesses. Previously, we thought we would do it, on our own. But then after meeting, really quickly, we knew we wanted to open a business together. So it was just a matter of figuring out what that was. But at the time, we were still working our corporate jobs. So we'd get off of work, we'd go to the nearby wine bar or beer garden, we'd have a pint or a glass, and we'd brainstorm business ideas. We're really passionate about hospitality, but we knew we didn't want to do a restaurant. We didn't want to do a coffee shop. I had grown up working in restaurants all through high school, and college. So I knew I didn't want to go into that industry in specific. But Damien, being from Europe, and I was fortunate enough to travel internationally at a young age, we started talking about, there's a lot of interesting things that exist out in the world that just haven't necessarily been brought to the United States yet. So we thought of the idea of, hey, what if we travel now while we're still young? We don't have kids. We don't have a mortgage. Yes, we have our corporate jobs, but at the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen? We can always get a job again. We feel like we're, fairly employable people. And so if we're going to take a risk, now is the time to do it. Let's go and travel the world and find the concepts that we really identify with, and that we also think we could scale in the United States. Because we also were thinking pretty big together. Like, we didn't want to be a mom and pop business owner for our whole lives. We knew we wanted to find something that we could scale and grow into a national brand. So we took about a year of, planning and plotting our escape from the corporate world. And the month after getting married, we pulled the trigger and we quit our jobs at the same time.
That's awesome. And it's hard to go wrong when your business partner is the little girl that analyzed traffic patterns when setting up her lemonade stand. I want to take a moment to tell you about our new partner, Athlete Fresh. If you work hard or train hard, you know the frustration of trying to clean sweat out of your clothes. They just aren't the same. Your clothes come out stiff and they start to smell immediately if they get even a little bit wet. Most detergents don't actually dissolve sweat. They just mask it with strong fragrances. Athlete Fresh dives deep into fabrics, especially synthetics, to break down the enzymes that produce that smell. They rinse sweat out once and for all, leaving you with clean, fresh clothes. They can even bring new life to your favorite old work clothes or athletic gear by removing the residue that other detergents leave behind. Make sure you check out athletefresh.shop/FromTheGroundUpShow. So this wild 14-month trip around the world, did you guys set out with kind of that time frame or that location in mind, or did you just kind of freely work your way around? And how did you prepare for that? Did it take some planning and funding that, or what did that look like?
Yeah, it's quite funny. I'm a little bit more of a planner, I think. And so for me, the idea of just like quitting our jobs and having this open-ended trip of not knowing how long it was going to take or where we were going was a little frightening. So my plan at first was, okay, we can let's just book our main flights to each continent every, few months. But Damien was like, no, how do you know that you're not going to get somewhere and want to go somewhere else, or you really love it and want to stay longer? So he's like, we're just going to buy a one-way ticket at a time. Let's just plan the first place. We have nowhere to be, no one to report to. So why plan this all out? You're going to, put us in a box. we need more freedom. And so he talked me into the idea of just, okay, we figure out where is the first place that we're going to go, which ended up being Moscow. Not so much that we thought we'd find a business there, but it was just an interesting place to stop. So we just bought a one-way ticket with no real plan for where we would go after that. But during that year that we were still in our corporate jobs, there was some planning. We saved as much as we could from our corporate jobs, but at the end of the day, we're still living in New York City, so our expenses were high. So one of the biggest things, though, where we got turned on to the idea of credit card points. And fortunately, I was in a role where I was taking a lot of people out to happy hours and to dinners through my job, and they would allow me to just then submit an expense report for reimbursement. So I strategically signed up with credit cards that I could get, earn high points for dining and these different types of expenditures. So we ended up saving close to 1 million Chase points over that year that we then used to fund our travel. So almost all of our flights were completely paid for with points. Some of our hotels were as well. But I did want to point out this was not a luxury travel experience. We were truly backpacking, staying in shared rooms and hostels. Staying this one hotel I remember on the beach in Thailand had cockroaches everywhere, but it was $7 a night. We ended up checking out at like 4 a.m. because I'm just like, I hate cockroaches. And so we had to sleep with the lights on, and we're like on top of the covers because there were just bugs crawling around everywhere. So, once you make the big flights, like from the US to Europe or over to Asia, travel within specific countries is pretty affordable. And thankfully, we were able to get those long haul flights covered with the credit card points.
Okay. Interesting. And so you said you started with Moscow. You mentioned Thailand. I know you wound up in Poland. How did you decide where to go? I mean, when you're in Moscow and you feel like you've seen Moscow, where do you go next?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that we wanted to do from a personal perspective during this business travel. So I had always really wanted to get my yoga teacher certification, and naturally that should be done in India, right? So
naturally,
we were going to India for a month to the birthplace of Ashtanga yoga, which was the style of yoga that I practiced. And so, Moscow to India was like kind of next doorish. So that was the next place that we went. Damien had his scuba diving certification already, but that's something that I wanted as well. And so again, naturally you go to Koh Tao, Thailand to get your scuba diving certification. And so, but there was a few things like that. We had a few weddings of friends and family that made us travel in very like nonsense directions. We were in Asia. We went to Australia and then back to Asia and then to France for another wedding. And then it was not in any sort of linear fashion. But one of my favorite stories is when we were in, was it Vietnam or Thailand with the coin?
Thailand.
In Thailand. I had always wanted to flip a coin to determine the next destination, just like, being spontaneous about it. And so we decided, okay, let's flip a coin. Heads, we go to Eastern Europe. Tails, we go to China. And so we ended up flipping the coin. It landed on heads. So Eastern Europe. First stop was Poland. And that's where we discovered the idea of the beer spa in Zakopane, Poland. But it's so funny because if we would have had the coin flip in the other direction on China, which we did end up going to China, but we probably would have skipped Eastern Europe, and we likely would have never discovered the idea of a beer spa, which is what we've built our whole business around now. So it's quite funny in hindsight how that one coin flip really like decided the fate of, quite a few years of our lives and what we're still living today.
That's incredible. What a great story and what a great experience. So when you visit this beer spa in Poland, when you guys got there and kind of saw that idea, did you know right away that was the idea you were going to walk away with, or was there more exploring after that?
No, I mean, I think, well, first of all, for the context, it was a rainy day in the middle of the summer in June in Poland. So we just got here. It's the middle of it's a mountainous region. And was like, okay, maybe we go for a hike or we go get out and get some fresh air, but it was raining. So we're like, well, what can we do? Not another bar and sit and have a beer. It was like, let's do something fun. So Jess goes on TripAdvisor and look at things to do, and one of those things to do is a beer spa. So it was like, oh, that's very intriguing. So let's go and try to get in. And 3 minutes later, we were checking in. It's very rustic. It's very bohemian. It's very different than what you would think. Actually, there's no expectations to have from a beer spa. You always question yourself, what is this? And yeah, we get in. We get into this tiny little room. There's a plastic shower. There's this tiny little tub. There's a bed of hay. There's a fridge next to you, and you get access to that room for about an hour. I think an hour and 30 minutes, and you can drink as much beer as you want. You can lay on the bed of hay between your shower and the soak, and it was very intriguing. But the moment was when we actually get into the tub. There's no bubblers. It's very quiet. It's a tiny little small tub that we fit together because we're pretty, I guess, short and small. And I fell asleep in about 3 minutes. It was the most relaxing experience I ever had. I wasn't haven't. I might have sipped a little bit of beer, but nothing crazy. And when I was asleep, just starting to really go big and strong on I think this can be done. This can be done. I think we should do this. We should bring this back. I think this is the way. We should do that. And she splashed me. I wake up a little and said, all right, I think we should do this. I said, what do you mean we should do this? Well, we should bring the beer spa back to the US and make it happen. I said, okay, well, we're very analytical. So I had to talk to her about, the importance of a business model, financial model, marketing model. Nothing too crazy, but something just to help us to put our ideas into paper because it's such a unique business idea. And yeah, and since this time, we promised ourselves to try as many spa concepts in Eastern Europe and all around the world. So we started to, of course, do all of the beer spas out there. There's multiple one, they're very popular. They're very party oriented. Are they clean enough? I don't know. And this is on them, but those are very different according to countries you go. There's Germany, Austria, there's, uh, there's Czech Republic, Poland, there's Hungary. All of those countries have a very developed bathing culture, but still beer spas are very popular, but still quite unique on their own. We did those wine spas in south of France, north of Spain. We did those thalassotherapy on the Atlantic coast of France and south of France, where you pretty much leverage seawater and create those hydrotherapy circuits for your own well-being. Seawater has a lot of benefits for you. We did those German spas that often people don't mind to be naked while drinking a beer in front of you. We went to Japan and South Korea where we tried the Hansen, Jinjiban. All of those are multi-level building with zillions of saunas, steam room, bath. And, above all of that, what we really realized is that a day spa is a place to reconnect, a social place in most of those countries. There's obviously a strong spa etiquette. Some countries you cannot talk in the sauna. In some countries, no, you can talk in the sauna. You can even drink vodka in Finland. When I was in Finland, people were drinking vodka in the sauna before going to jump in the lake or in the cold bath. So overall, the Sparticat is different. It is a social place. People go to the day spa to reconnect to each other. It can be a family time where in Japan you see that whole family, grandparents, parents, kids, grandkids are all going together for a few hours on a Sunday, a Saturday, And what they do is they spend quality time together, relaxing, but as well meeting in the middle of all of that is a cantina where you can buy a beer, slurp a bowl of noodle, and wellness, well-being goes hands to hands with all of that social aspect or that hospitality aspect. When you look back to the US, I think the aha moment was as entrepreneurs is can you really land in a market where you don't try to disrupt it, but you shake it up. There's already a strong following on day spas, but that's often targeted towards women more than anything. It is often stuck in the past, very, very transaction based, and focus and targeted toward a specific audience. And Jessica and I really wanted to shake this up and make it more fun and make it more approachable, less intimidating, and mainly very, most importantly, being able to attract any type of audience. It can be women, it can be men. This was very important to us with a big sense of hospitality. When you go to your day spa, this is very easy. You need to live relaxed, happy, and often you need to feel during your experience, you need to feel safe. It needs to be clean. It needs to be pleasant. It needs to smell good. And we've worked very hard on that. And all of that created that moment for us.
It sounds like even more than shaking it up, you guys are almost creating a whole new industry here that, at least my very limited experience, my wife probably knows more. Just what you said, the spa experience here in the US, you get your treatments lined out, you schedule your massage or whatever, and you probably have some time to relax in the spa, but it's very transactional, it's very focused. You have specific things that you're doing. And it sounds like you guys have a little bit different view of wellness as a whole to incorporate relaxation and even social engagement and bringing in that social aspect of wellness. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In some countries, Spain, in France, or in Italy, taking a seat to enjoy a glass of wine and watching people walking in the street, or even, after a long day, could be considered as wellness. Of course, it might not be advice from your physician, but it's a time where you sit down and reconnect with someone else or your inner self.
And we knew that in the US, like this is something that people want. I've been going to spas since I was young with my mom, with my sister. And you go for, a mother-daughter experience for Mother's Day, for example, or later on you go with a partner for a couple's massage, and you were going with someone intending for it to be this, moment of reconnection and socialization and spending time together. But the spas are very conducive to that. You get your couple's massage, you're face down on a table in the same room, and then typically all of the amenities, the saunas, the tubs, etc., are in gender separated areas. Or if there are common areas, it's really quiet, right? Like there's maybe some rainforest sounds going on in the background. Some people are there by themselves reading a book, and like if you're talking with someone, everyone can hear every word that you're saying. I mean, I've been one of those people that's reading a book and you see a bachelorette party that's in the hot tub and they're all just like laughing and having a good time, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to relax here. So then there's often like conflicting motivations. Some people are there to socialize. Some people are there to have a solo meditative experience. And then just the environments are not conducive to socializing. The background music, the seating, the gender separation of the areas. But yet we still continue to spend all this money in the United States going for couples massages and going for girls' days at the spa. But there's never really an appropriate environment for that. And so, we felt like if we do this right, we can create the privacy that Americans need by having these private spa suites where you're just there with your group. So you're not interrupting the group that's in the private spa suite next door that may be there for a very different reason. One group's there to socialize. The next one's there to, really relax after a stressful week. And both people can have their own experiences without interrupting each other. But then you create this communal space, this tap room, which is meant for socialization. There, the music is upbeat. We play bossa nova, we play French pop, we play R&B, all different kinds of upbeat music. The lighting, the scent, everything is really set up to more reflect a boutique hotel lobby than it is a spa waiting area or a spa relaxation area. Um, and we found that, people are coming time and time again for their monthly date night, to celebrate birthdays, to celebrate anniversaries, because the environment is just way better suited to being there with someone else. And 95% of our guests are coming as two people, as either couples or two friends. And so our environment is really just catered to that, which again is something I think that we want in America. And we already spend money going on spas trying to find, but it's just never in other places set up appropriately.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It sounds like you guys are really onto something there. Could you walk me through what does an experience at an Oakwell Spa look like from the time you arrive to the services you offer and that experience that you would get there? What is that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we well, obviously you make your reservation online, right? So the idea is to make sure you have a pleasant experience, which is why we often consider ourselves as almost a tech company, just because we really put a lot of time and energy on the booking flow, on the experience you have on the website, the quality of the information. And when it's time to come, well, we ask you to come 30 minutes before, just because we want to ease you into relaxation. There's a minimal check-in process where we check your IDs. There's obviously beer, wine, cider, non-alcoholic beverage on tap. So the law requires to check your ID. You sign a waiver or two, making sure that you're aware that there's no lifeguard on duty and that you need to stay responsible, because there is alcohol, if you want to drink it. And then we start the experience. We escort you to a beautiful tap room. We have what's called a beer well. So it's a tap hall with different selection of curated beer, craft beer from Colorado. We have sours, IPA, Dinkel, Saison. It really depends on the pretty much the season and the breweries we have on tap. We have cider, non-alcoholic beverages. We have wine for the ladies or the guys who want to take a break from the beer. And we walk you through that whole selection. And of course, you have a little tasting if you'd like to. And we teach you how to pour yourself a nice drink. Often people tell us they know how to pour, but we're very we love teaching. So often we show to people how to perf- uh, pour a perfect beer, and when it's done, we invite you to take a seat somewhere in a beautiful tap room. Imagine that it's not your typical tap room. I would actually we could call it the lounge, almost like a boutique hotel lobby lounge where it smells good. The music is nice. There's the decor is really helping you to ease into relaxation. We have topic cards in the middle of each tables where you can put your phone away and really start to reconnect with your significant other with all of those table topics. That's a brand. If they listen to us, thank you. You've reconnected a lot of couples. And when you take a seat and you start to sip your beer, we usually have someone else from the team kind to introduce you to our bath selection. So you're able to select one of the three baths we offer. Those baths are not made with real beer, fermented beer. No, it's a botanical and holistic approach to bathing. We leverage different fresh herbs such as hops and barley, which are the ingredients of the beer, and different other ingredients. It can be lemongrass, verbena. Every time we have a master herbalist in house that helps us to come up with all of that. But every time it changes, it's always new most of the time. We're actually right now working on a wine bath as well. And anyway, you select your beer bath, or your future wine bath. And when you have made your selection, you have about a few more minutes to ease into relaxation by drinking and taking pictures in your fun social media tab. And then when it's time to go, we have a beer therapist. This is the legal name of the legal title of our staff members. They give you a tour and escort you to your private spa suite. So you get into a private spacesuit. It's very large. It's beautiful. It smells good. It has been cleaned and sanitized. So you don't have that feeling that someone else has been before you. We have the large hydrotherapy tub, the rain shower, and the sauna. And we suggest you start a circuit with a 15-20 minutes of infrared sauna to really detox, let go of everything, sweat as much as you can. Of course, you can drink your favorite beer. In the sauna, we have those triple insulated stainless steel tumbler that you can use. We have water, of course, available for you. Then it's time to take a cold shower for a few seconds to really shake up that body and help you to keep your blood flowing. To then jump into this beautiful large bath. As I said, the bath is not made with fermented beer. Uh, so imagine yourself really smelling what it would smell when you walk next to a brewery that is currently brewing, much like Worth, right? But this is as well very herbal. The temperature of the tub is not what you would expect from a tub of oars. This is not a hot tub. It is more like between 95 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This helps you to really stay in the bath, soak in the bath as much as possible, and it helps you not kill the benefits of those fresh ingredients we have. We have a room service button in case you want to have a refill, you just ring the bell. I often joke, if you ring twice, we'll run faster for you to bring your favorite drinks. You can add a bottle of sparkling wine. There's different package with the charcuterie board, artisan chocolate bonbon. Anyway, you can really make this experience your own celebration, anniversary, birthday, but that's not just a simple me time for yourself or yourself and a good friend. We have as well a mini bar. We call it the cosmetic mini bar, similar to what actually one of those hotel chain just launched, a beauty bar, but we've launched it 5 years ago. Imagine that it works exactly the same like it will work in the hotel room, but instead of having vodka or champagne available, you have those cosmetics product that helps you to elevate your experience in the room. So we have beer mask, we have face mask, we have CBD bath bombs, we have body lotion and all the products are here to help you elevate your experience as well. By that time, it's been an hour and a half. So you're about to leave your room, and we have a beautiful vanity area where you can freshen up and get ready for your next adventures. We have what it's called the cooling down areas. It's a lounge where after experience, we really suggest you to take it easy and take a good 15-20 minutes to cool down, take it easy, have another beer, cider. Often the beer or cider tastes better after the experience. And then we have this experience called a zero gravity massage experience. So those are high technology piece of equipment. You might think those are massage chairs, but that are not your typical massage chairs from the mall or the airports that you see. There are high technology piece of equipment that scans your body for 20 seconds. When you sit in them, recline you like an astronaut is taking off. So like Jeff Bezos going into space, right? And that technology start from top to bottom and give you a full body massage for 15-30 minutes or an hour. Those are very popular. We've realized that the market in the US is very similar to specific markets like in Japan or South Korea, where people don't like strangers to touch them or being, natural with the strangers touching your body might not feel good. So, leveraging technology to deliver a massage experience has been key to our success and actually has made your concept even more popular. Uh, this is a very successful company based in Boulder, Planet Boulder, as I like to call it. They know what they're doing. They know their technology, and yeah. So about an hour and a half in the private spa suite, maybe a 15-30 minutes or an hour massage on top of that, plus 30 minutes checking in. It's about 2 hours and a half to 3 hours staycation. And often what we hear from the guests coming in is, this is the best date night we ever had. We're about to reconnect. There's no distraction, no screens, no games, no waiters disrupting our conversation, no table next to us that is annoying, right? Or even trying to discuss with us. It's really it's almost a mini vacation. It's a mini vacation. Some feedback are, I cannot believe I'm in Denver. I cannot believe I'm right in the middle of Rhino 5 points. I cannot believe that even for just a 3-minute massage, I feel more relaxed and happy. So we're nailing it at that point on delivering happiness through wellness.
Man, that sounds fantastic. I am even looking more forward to coming down to Denver and checking it out. We've been trying to make that happen for a while and just haven't put a trip to Denver together. But I want to shift gears a little bit from the experience and talk a little bit about your guys' experience building this business. What was the most difficult step getting Oakwell off the ground? You had this great idea. You explored the world and got inspiration from a lot of different cultures, a lot of different experiences. What was the hardest part in making it a reality?
Yeah. To paint the picture, so we had decided that we wanted to open a beer spa. We spent the second half of our travels putting together financial projections, business plan, and then we had to decide where we wanted to open this. We had been living in New York City previously. As much as we love New York, it's really expensive. It's oversaturated when it comes to tourist activities. So we wanted to find a market that we could make an impact in more quickly, and that was also a bit more affordable. So we did a ton of market research again while we were on the other side of the world, just, on our computers, looking up craft beer cities, looking at wellness oriented cities, and have really narrowed it down to Austin, Denver, and Portland. Denver ended up winning. We had never been to Denver before, but all of our market research was saying, hey, Denver's the place where you should launch this. We were really interested in the franchise model. So we knew we wanted to scale this into a national brand by franchising. There was a lot of really successful franchises that started in Denver: Chipotle, Quiznos, other companies like Crocs, Otterbox. It's really a great hub. We also found that Denver had a lot of financing programs for small businesses that can't get traditional funding. We had a little bit of money that we had saved up from our corporate jobs, but again, we had just been traveling for a little over a year, so we didn't have much left, but we didn't want to take outside investors. We didn't want to give away any equity, so we needed to find a way to get a loan, even though we didn't have a house, so we didn't have collateral. We had a tiny bit of money to put in, but we knew that it'd be challenging to find funding. What we didn't anticipate, though, was how difficult it was to find a commercial space to put this. So we flew right to Denver after traveling. We still had our backpacks on, now business plan in hand, right? We didn't know anything about Denver, like the neighborhoods, where to go. So we ended up on this site called Trusted House Sitters, which we had used while traveling as well, which you can basically stay for free in people's homes in exchange for watching their homes or pets while they're away traveling. So there's about 3 or 4 different houses that we stayed at. We watched this one lady's cat while she was on a cruise. This other lady went to New Zealand to visit some family for a few weeks. So we watched her. She had 3 dogs and 2 cats, like a lot of animals to watch. But so we were staying in these places for free, like trying to get a feel for Denver. Also started going and pitching banks, trying to find a loan. We went to over 40 banks. We went to all the big ones, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. We went to your small local Rocky Mountain, credit union type of things. And really quickly, we found out we weren't going to get a loan from a traditional bank. We didn't have the collateral. We didn't have the cash to put in. So we ended up getting connected with the city of Denver, the Office of Economic Development, which we had read a little bit about these programs when we were traveling. But we ended up being able to get a loan because all of these banks said no to us, and we were able to bring them the rejection letters from these 40 banks. And we had a pretty good, a very comprehensive business plan and financial projections. But one of the caveats of getting a loan from the Office of Economic Development was the business needed to be physically located in a specific area. So they had this map of these neighborhoods that they were trying to redevelop, essentially. So we weren't going to be able to go to the hip and trendy, Cherry Creek or Low High or these neighborhoods in Denver that, already have a lot of businesses in them. We'd have to kind of be in the outskirts in areas that were maybe a little bit sketchy, but the city was trying to put some money into. So when we were looking for commercial spaces, this was in 2019, Denver had this big boom because of marijuana. And so the vacancy rate for commercial spaces of the size that we were looking for was 2%. So 98% of these, buildings that kind of fit our specs were already occupied. So we had a very limited pool. Plus, then you take into consideration that we have to be located within these specific neighborhoods in order to get the funding that we wanted to. So one of our biggest challenges was actually finding the commercial space, which we thought yeah, we're going to be able to sign a lease. It's going to be so easy. We're going to have a really hard time finding the money. But the opposite was actually true. We got the funding really quite quickly within a few months of being here, contingent upon finding a space. And finding a space took us we moved here in January, ended up signing a lease in October. So it took us 10 months. A lot of the landlords wouldn't even show us the space. And mind you, they didn't even have to do anything. They have real estate agents that would show the space for them, but they didn't even give us the time of day to show us the space because they wanted a proven tenant. They didn't know, what a beer spa was. Also, who are these young, 20-something-year-old kids? They're not going to be able to pay this rent. I'm not even going to waste my time. I'd rather have a 7-Eleven or a Chick-fil-A or some proven concept. So that was really surprising. And we ended up finding a space that it's a neighborhood called 5 Points. It's right adjacent to the brewery district, but it's definitely not in the hip and trendy area. And 5 Points has historically been a pretty sketchy neighborhood in Denver. I mean, even 15 years ago, it's you don't walk around at night alone in 5 Points. The block that we went into had been vacant for several years. And so there was a lot of, unsavory characters that would hang out in the parking lot and on the block. So it was a big risk for us going in there. But we saw that it had a lot of potential. We loved the building as well, had a lot of character to it. So we ended up doing the construction there. But that was definitely the second part that was the most challenging, was the build out. We were very underfunded, even though we got a loan. We did our construction budget based on what's the average construction cost in Denver per square footage, right? And so we're okay, $150 per square foot sounds great. We didn't realize, the building didn't have enough electrical service. We had to upsize the electrical service. The water line was a 1/2-inch lead pipe that was installed in 1896. We have high water needs for our tubs. So we had to upsize the water line, which is really expensive. There was no heating or air conditioning. So we had to install 2 new 5-ton rooftop units for HVAC. All of these things that definitely was not captured in our $150 a square foot construction budget. So we had to get really creative, and even finding a GC that would work on our project with that limited budget was challenging. We found a guy, his name is Ron, though. And I mean, it wouldn't have been possible without him. He gave us his toolbox, brought all of his tools there. He would teach me how to install cabinetry, how to mud drywall, how to do some minor electrical work and plumbing work. And we were doing things that we absolutely had no business doing, but it was the only way that we could get the project done and open. And so it ended up taking 2 years to do the construction because we had to do a lot of it ourselves. And then for our equipment as well, it's a walk-in cooler cost $20,000 brand new. We didn't have that kind of money. Fortunately for us, though, this was during COVID. And so a lot of businesses were going out of business. So Ron had turned us on to the concept of business auctions. So there's a couple of business auction houses in Colorado that basically, when a company goes out of business and they get reclaimed by the city or reclaimed by the bank, they put all of their equipment and furniture up for auction for other people to bid on. So we ended up getting over 50% of our furniture, fixtures, and equipment used from these auctions. Like our walk-in cooler came from a Subway that was going out of business in Fort Collins. That was a 20-year-old walk-in cooler, but it still ran. It was like all corroded inside, lots of rust, like in very rough shape. But we ended up getting it for $200 at auction. We paid another $200 for a moving company to disassemble it in Fort Collins, drive it down to us, and put it back together. We ended up pressure washing it to get the rust off. We got some sheet metal to just put on the inside so the health department didn't see that it's like actually like rotting on the inside, so we could pass our health inspection. There's so many stories like that of just how we had to get creative, Facebook Marketplace, finding things that were broken, like light fixtures that were broken, and then, bribing our electricians with a beer to fix the wiring so we could use the light fixture. But it was definitely a really challenging time. I mean, Damien and I we had no other outside income at this time. So we also had to live really cheap. In between doing this physical construction work, I would go and sell my blood plasma. I had gotten COVID during this time. So this is when they wanted to do research on people's blood. So I could get $100 per session to sell my blood plasma. We got as many 0% APR credit cards as we could get approved for. And we learned the trick of if you apply for a bunch of credit cards on the same day, then they won't know, it hasn't showed up on your credit report yet. So you just apply for, 5 or 10 credit cards with no interest rate for the first 12 months and just max all of those out. Fingers crossed that you'd be able to pay those off before interest kicks in at the end of the 12 months. We'd then get credit card points and convert those into Walmart gift cards that we could buy the pillows for the couches in the tap room. Damien drove for Lyft. So all day we do construction, and then at 11 p.m. he'd start driving for Lyft, and he would do airport rides. Because that's where he could get the most money, and he would use that as a time to do market research. He would ask the guests, that he's driving around, like, hey, I'm opening a beer spa. Like, how much would you pay for this? How long would you want to spend in the private spa suite? Like, what do you think about this? And it was a great time to get a real sampling of the general public and ask them a bunch of questions about our business concept, which funny enough, a few of them actually came to the spa later on and was like, hey, Damien was our Lyft driver back in the day. We would walk dogs on Rover for $10 or $20 to do a quick 30-minute dog walk around the neighborhood. So we had to get really scrappy. There was a lot of, tensions were high, not a lot of sleep. We were very poor, but eventually we got it done.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is quite the adventure. At what point in that were you most afraid? Was there ever a point that you didn't think you were going to be able to pull it off?
I'm not sure, not afraid. I think at that point, you're building the idea that you're taking on the world. I think it's more the market, the product slash service fits the market. Is that the right timing? You're spending all that energy, time, and you wonder if all of the decisions you're taking sometime on the fly make sense, and is this will serve the main goal of shaking up that marketplace, and I think the second part is if you're just specifically talking about construction, is that obsession of opening day. You don't know the date, but you need to strive on that goal. We need to open. We're not building all that. We're not buying all those things to not open, which means the translation is running out of money. Well, we didn't have any. So running out of money, we didn't have to open the business, which often is, what can you leverage? Credit cards, driving Lyft, all of the side gigs that really helps you fuel, and maybe as well, most importantly, the trust and the confidence you have from your GC, because during that time, the GC was, he was the one who was helping us to make this happening. So how do you manage the subcontractors, him? Sometimes, people come from different walk of life. They have different way of reaction. You come in the morning at 6 a.m. You say, hey, this needs to be done today. and you're just, sometimes a 20 years old something at a time, and that person will build hundreds of thousands of feet through the career. You can have some clash. So how do you make sure that a project stays on track with managing the relationship, managing the resources, and making sure that you stay focused on this opening time, that opening day, that you should get closer as soon as you start. You're actually getting closer. It's like a marathon. It's you're getting closer to the finish line,
Yeah.
and you need to stick to that no matter what. And you need to be very strong. You need to really sometime uh, stay clueless and just believe that this is gonna happen, even if you feel like the sky is falling on you right now.
Yeah.
Eric, one of the a funny story that I think speaks to this. We were 2 weeks away from our grand opening. So this is like end of construction, right? We've made it. We've set a date for our grand opening, and we go to test all of our tubs. We had installed this tankless hot water heating system. So we have like very expensive 3 tankless hot water heaters that are kind of wrapped together in a loop to provide us all the hot water that we need to fill our tubs that are like 200 gallons per tub. We have 4 tubs and we're filling them 27 times a day. So we're like pumping through a lot of water, and we needed to test it before our grand opening. So we go and we fire up the tankless hot water heaters. We start filling the tubs, and we keep getting an error message on the tankless hot water heaters that we don't have enough gas. There's not enough gas. There's not enough gas. Like, we can't work. And they keep shutting down on us. And we're like, oh no, what is going on? Like, we just installed all of this brand new. Like, how can this not be working? We're of course getting like really pissed off at our general contractor, like saying all sorts of things to him. And so Damien had this brilliant idea of like, okay, we don't have enough gas. Like, maybe there's a gas leak, or like maybe just the building's not getting enough gas. Like, we need to get Xcel Energy out here. And Xcel is the local, utility authority. So he ended up calling the emergency Xcel line saying that there is a gas leak, to get someone to come out to just like help us figure out what's going on. Because you can't just call him and be like, hey, will you send someone out and like help us troubleshoot our construction job? So he's like, yeah, there's a gas leak, like, and they send someone out with their, little sirens on, like parking on the sidewalk, thinking that there could be a gas explosion or an emergency. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't really smell any gas here. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I get that your water heaters aren't working, but there's not a leak here. And as he's walking out of the building, he sees the gas meter outside, and he says, hey, like, did you know that your gas meter is sized for like a single family residential unit? Like, this is not a commercial gas meter. There's no way that this gas meter is letting enough flow through to feed this commercial hot water heater system. Like, you need to upsize the gas meter. So we're like, first off, pissed off at our GC. Like, how did you not, like, we redid the piping inside the building to be large enough for the gas that we needed, and just didn't check the gas meter, which, all the gas flows through and is restricting the flow. And no one thought to look at that. We have opening in 2 weeks. And so we asked the guy from Xcel, and we're like, hey, how long is this going to take? And he's like, oh, it takes months. Like, you have to get permits, you have to apply for it, you have to get engineering drawings, like there's calculations to be done. The equipment is, back ordered. And we're like, oh no, like everything is done. We're ready to open. Like, we have a ribbon cutting ceremony with the mayor scheduled. Like, we cannot wait months for this. This is horrible. And so that was one of the times that we thought, like, oh no, like we may not open on time. This could be a disaster. And so another stroke of genius from Damien is, after calling the main line and getting just the same rejection of like, no, this is like a multi-months process. Damien was like, I need to find someone that can push this through. So he went on LinkedIn and looked at profiles of anyone that worked for Xcel, like within Denver. And there's these little, add-ons that you can have on your browser, like Rocket Reach or Contact Out or something, that will scrape the LinkedIn page and give you the personal contact information of those people. So I forgot what this guy's actual name is, but we'll call him Tim, right? So Tim, like we found he's the director of gas services at Xcel Energy. He finds a phone number for him, ends up calling his phone number. It's his landline. Like it is his home phone. And so he picks up, it's like, hello. And there's children screaming in the background. And Damien in his French accent is like, oh, hello. Like, I'm Damien. We're trying to open this beer spa. We have this emergency. Like, we have a grand opening. The mayor's coming. We need to upsize our gas line. The guy's like, how did you get this number? And he's like, well, I found it online. And he's like, this is my personal number. Don't ever call me back here, but let me call you from my work phone in a few minutes. So, he's a little pissed off, but is interested, I think. So he ends up giving us a call back. Damien explains the story and is like, is this an emergency? Is there anything we can do? And he somehow ends up convincing this guy to expedite it for us. I think he could hear the desperation in our voice, and it ended up getting us a new gas meter, correctly sized, installed a week later, just in time for grand opening. And so, everything worked out at the end of the day, but that was definitely one of those times when, after so much hard work, and you're thinking the finish line is right there, like then it just feels like it's gonna all slip through your fingers. But thankfully, we found a solution.
My goodness! And so, what was that timeline? You said you moved to Denver in January. You finally got into the building in October.
Yeah.
You guys have leveraged everything you can. You've borrowed money anywhere you possibly can, including credit cards. You're just driving Lyft, walking dogs, trying to get this paid for and finished for opening day. How long was that entire process?
Yeah, from landing to Denver to the grand opening.
2 years.
Yes, 2 years.
We moved here January 1st, 2019,
And
signed the lease in October 2019, and ended up opening in February of 2021. So it was like a year and a half of construction.
And so not only, you're funding this build and the construction and trying to make the business go, but you guys had to fund your life for 2 years as well, driving Lyft and walking dogs and doing all of these things. So you're pushing this construction while also trying to make life happen.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a stressful time for sure. It tested our relationship. But, after traveling the world backpacking on a shoestring budget as well for 14 months, we learned how to work through some tough times together for sure.
Oh, man. Anybody that, has a negative opinion of business owners or entrepreneurs or those that have made a success of themselves, they need to have that experience you guys had.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. So I'm guessing, from your story here, you're launching the business with quite a bit of debt. You've leveraged everything you could possibly leverage to make it happen. And fast forward to today, you guys have multiple locations, are starting your journey towards franchising and really going as a national brand. What did that look like? I mean, was it kind of a success from the beginning? Was there still a juggling act going with all the leverage and the debt you guys had? What were those first months, first years like?
I mean, you can call it a success from the level you started, right? That's very subjective to call it a success. But yes, for us, it's a success because we're about to open and prove ourselves that the business model can be replicable with a second additional store. The success as well of building a strong team. You obviously don't open a second store if you have not built a successful first team. And I think, and I think we think that from day one, we were so obsessed with delivering what we think is our core mission is to help the humanity to relax and feel and connect and feel good. And that's simple, maybe foolish statement, but after 5 years, 2 stores, well obsessed with guest feedbacks on making sure that the guest leaves happy, which translates into great, usually reviews online, or as well building that community around that really want to come and be a member of Oakwell. We have a membership program now, has shown that this is successful. Now, we are not thinking that way. I think we're still, as of today, in survival mode. I mean, waking up in the morning as a fellow entrepreneurs thinking that the sky might fall on you and you need to be ready for that. You cannot
Yeah.
anticipate it. Of course, you can as much as possible, but you cannot control everything. So making sure that you never stay grounded on your, today it's easy, and there's always challenges in place that we work on. I must say we have the best team ever right now. So Jessica and I can focus on more like the bigger picture, going nationwide, building building a strong pool of franchisee that wants to jump into this bandwagon that they love to get started on something new that has been proven here in this market, and that's what we're doing now. While the team in Denver and in Highlands Ranch are managing the day-to-day operations. Of course, we're extremely involved, but at a very different degree. We spend our first 3 years and a half, 7 days a week focus on operations. We think that we're at a really good stage today to let our managers shining, having them the responsibility to do good, to stick to that mission statement, to for us to be able to now spread Oakwell nationwide.
But I have to say, going back to 2021 when we first opened, the timing was perfect. COVID was just ending. People had money. They wanted to get out. They wanted to do things, but they were a little apprehensive to go to their normal spa, to go get a pedicure or to go get a massage or a facial where you're interacting with the service provider in close quarters. So our concept was really well adapted to this post-COVID world of, we had these private spa suites. They were clean, disinfected after each use. You're just spending time with the person that you came with. You're not really interacting with staff, in any sort of close manner. So as soon as we opened our booking system, we had 2.5 bookings per minute for the first 24 hours. Our servers crashed, the website crashed. We had so much traffic. And it's so funny that the business model was that Damien and I, thought we were going to slowly get busier over time. We'd have a few appointments a day at the beginning and it would slowly ramp up. So we had no intention of hiring anyone at the beginning. We thought we were going to run the spa, the two of us, for the first year at least. So all of a sudden we are booked out at 100% occupancy as soon as we open the booking system, from the day that we opened. And we're open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., booked solid. So we very quickly realized that we needed to hire a team. We had about a week in between when we opened the booking system and when our first appointments actually were. I very quickly, thankfully I had a recruiting background. So I very quickly put together a job description, started inviting people in for interviews. But this was when stimulus checks were going out. And so half of the interviews wouldn't even show up because people were getting free checks from the government. So recruiting was really difficult. And basically it was anyone that showed up, semi on time to the interview and could hold a conversation. We were like, can you be here on Friday? But we had no training material yet. So I had to very quickly put together some training curriculum, define, who was doing what. We had no opening or closing tasks. We had nothing because we were just going to figure it out as we went along.
Oh my God.
So, and fortunately our first group of employees were very understanding that we were kind of throwing it together. And yeah, we were just absolutely slammed. And we were, to Damien's point, so focused on the guest experience and really, really willing to go above and beyond. Anytime something happened, which it did, we were slammed from the beginning, we'd forget towels in someone's room, right? So they're getting out of a shower, dripping wet, and there's no towels for them to use. Or we have an automated filling and draining system for the tubs where when the session is done, the tub should automatically start draining. And that's the indication that it's your time to get out of the room, that you have 20 minutes to freshen up and exit the room. Well, we'd forget to set the timer on the tub. And so you'd be in the the tub for 5 minutes and it would start draining on you. So all these things would happen, but we were like really quick to okay, you're not paying for this experience and we're giving you a gift card to come back and try it again. So you can experience it as it was intended to be, because we've seen so many businesses open and you start off, with some negative reviews, and all of a sudden you're at a 4.8 and then you're at a 4.2 and then now all of a sudden you're at a 3 something, and like no one wants to go to a business that's a 3 point something rating, especially when it's like already a beer spa. Like sounds kind of weird, I don't know. So people are already a little apprehensive. So we were very focused on maintaining, positive reviews, making sure that if anything went wrong, like the guest didn't pay for it, we invited them to come back. And so we maintained a 5-star rating for our first 2.5 years in business. We're at a 4.9 now, which we're very sad that we went down to 4.9. But it's been 5 years in business. We have over 3,000 Google reviews and still a 4.9 rating, which at least in Denver is pretty unheard of.
That is incredible. That's an awesome story. I can't get over it. The risk you guys took, the leverage that you took, and then for it to take off like that, that's incredible. You guys have something special, and I just keep going back to the girl that was analyzing traffic patterns for her lemonade stand. You've taken that level of detail, that level of attention, and brought it to a market that needed shaken up. Wow, you guys are doing it. You're making it happen. So I'm guessing you guys lived on the cheap for a very long time. You went from 2, I'm guessing, well-paid corporate jobs living in New York, the New York lifestyle, to living out of a backpack around the world, kind of roughing it, and then bootstrapping this business. What has the last 5 years looked like? What does capital investment look like for you guys? Are you still putting everything you've got back into the business, or have you hit a point where you can reap some of the benefits and enjoy that life a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely give ourselves a bit of salary, but most of the resources generated are reinvested back for the next steps. I think we're still very early on in the lifetime of the company. I think there's still a lot of necessary big investments. The first one that comes to my mind is marketing. I mean, to educate the market about a concept like ours takes so much resources. Franchising is another big bucket that demands a lot of investment upfront to see results way later. And as you know, when you build those type of spas, those are brick and mortar, they're very capital intensive. Not only do you need to building the second one in a matter of within 5 years in business was, from some institutions pretty risky, but we've proven the business model. But now, how do you plan the future with thinking of remodeling the first spa, which we're doing now because we built it ourselves, but now it's time to remodel it to bring the level of comfort you have with from the new store we've built. Supporting our franchisee, a future franchisee is key. This is what really makes a franchise sales system successful, is this level of support, and you cannot be cheap. You cannot, we've never been in business. We've never created a business it's mine and it's, thank you. No, we want our team to be good. We want our managers to make it a career. We want our team members to see the project themselves within the company. And this takes time and resources. So most of the proceeds right now are being reinvested.
But we're fortunate that both of our locations, we're cash flow positive since day one of opening both locations.
Well, when you're booking a new appointment every, 2.5 minutes?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. No,
oh
2.5 bookings
that's incredible.
per minute.
Okay. 2.5 bookings per minute. That's incredible.
Per minute for 24 hours. So the businesses are extremely profitable. And, for a franchisee that decides to invest in us and open their own Oakwell, I mean, you can live a very good life just owning and operating one. Whereas a lot of other concepts, like you go and do a quick service restaurant or maybe even a more like the Massage Envy or the Now or these smaller massage chains, you really have to own multiple units because the average revenue per unit and the margins are relatively small. Our revenue is fairly high for the industry and our margins are pretty high for the industry. So you can make a good living just having one location. But for us, to Damien's point, we've never been in this for the money and we want to grow this into something big. So, while yes, we're not, staying in people's homes for free anymore. Like we're still renting, right? Like we don't even own a home. We're still renting an apartment. Thankfully, we've been able to have a little bit nicer of a lifestyle than we were when we were backpacking the world. But it's really our choice to reinvest everything to grow this into a national brand, because things like, the remodel and franchising, we've been able to save up enough cash that we're able to self-fund a lot of these things instead of taking out additional loans and increasing our debt. So, while a location by itself, if you just own and operate one location, it's a very profitable business. But we've just made the decision to reinvest all of our profits into making this even bigger.
That's incredible. I love it. You guys are the epitome of the entrepreneur. Just your personalities, the experiences you bring to it. I hope this takes off in a way you can't even imagine. I'm so impressed by your story. I love it. So I know you guys are launching the franchising operation is kind of a new thing. Can you give me some of the details about that? What would be your ideal franchisor, and what kind of a commitment does that take from them, and what does that process look like?
Yeah. So our ideal franchisee is going to be someone that has some sort of experience in the hospitality industry. We're a hospitality business at the end of the day. Guest service is really important, but also employee happiness, I'd say, is of the utmost importance. And, hourly hospitality employees are much different than folks that you'll find in the corporate world. So someone that is just leaving a corporate job and wants to start their own business, it can be a hard adjustment then. And it certainly was for us, now having employees that were servers and bartenders previously. They have different ambitions, different things that drive them. The work ethic is different. And so just knowing how to connect with and motivate this, specific type of employee is really important. Because if your employees aren't happy and you just come in and you manage them like you would a team of software developers at your, Fortune 500 corporate job, it's not going to go over very well. And if your employees aren't happy, then the guests feel that. We've all been to a restaurant before where it seems like you're inconveniencing the server by being there. And no matter how great the ambiance is or how great the food is, if the service doesn't feel great, then it's not going to be a good experience and you're not going to come back. And so having someone that has some experience in the hospitality industry, they don't need to have owned a restaurant before, but even just working as a server or bartender when they were younger, just understanding that mindset, I think is really important. We really love immigrants as well, right? Like Damien coming from France. I really appreciate people that move to the United States to make a life for themselves. Typically the work ethic is there, right? They work really hard. They want to provide for their family. And the fact that they moved all the way to the United States and put all of their eggs in this basket to create something for themselves really speaks to the type of character that they have. And so we really love talking to people that, aren't originally from the United States. And then, of course, people that are looking to maybe change their career, like they've been in the corporate world for their whole life, or maybe they've owned other types of businesses and they're looking to diversify into something a little bit more fun or into something that's newer, is, all great things that we're looking for as well. And in terms of cities, we've mapped out 100 target markets within the United States, really mid to large size cities. So typically nothing smaller than Denver, Colorado, with the exception of high tourist cities. So places like Asheville, North Carolina, or Palm Springs. They're smaller cities. The population count isn't quite as large, but you get a lot of visitors. So those cities, I think, would work really great for an Oakwell Beer Spa as well.
Okay. And what is what commitment level are you looking at for the franchisor? What is that look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did
So
they get started?
yeah. Well, the first that they have to understand is the investment level. So it's anywhere between 1.3 million to 2.6 million to create an Oakwell Beer Spa, depending on the city that you're in, right? The range is really high because 2.6 million accounts for New York City or LA, California, where construction costs are really high. If you're in a smaller market, it'll be on the lower end of that. So first is, someone that has the capital to be able to, typically it'll be a combination of funds like liquid cash that they have available in addition to a loan. We are on the SBA franchise registry. And so an SBA loan is a route that people often take. But how the process works is it's really it needs to be a mutual fit. Both we're selecting them and they're selecting us. So the first step is filling out an inquiry form on our website. So it's oakwellfranchise.com. Then they'll set up an introductory call with Damien and I. We'll kind of get to know each other, talk through what they're interested in, why they're looking to invest in a franchise, what city that they're looking to open in. We've had some people expressed interest, like they're really excited about the concept, but the city that they want to open this in is really, really small. It's like 2 hours away from any sort of major city. And unfortunately, we just don't feel like the population count will be able to support a spa, at least at the beginning. So making sure that the, city and state that they're looking at aligns. And then there's several different education calls that they go through. So we walk them through what the construction process looks like, what support we provide in construction. We walk them through the marketing program, what national marketing support that they'll have. We walk them through the financials. Here's how our 2 corporate-owned stores have done from a revenue, an expense, and a net profit perspective. Here's what you can expect in your market. And then the last step is for them to come out to what in the franchise world we call Discovery Day. So it's basically they get to meet us in person, enjoy a spa experience. We do some behind the scenes, like here's what a day in the life of running a spa looks like. And then after the Discovery Day is we both make a decision. Like we make a decision on if we think this person will be a good fit for our brand. They also make a decision if this is a concept that they want to invest in. And then you get into, legal documents from there and bring them on board. But the process can go as slowly or as quickly as the person feels comfortable with. But on average, the whole thing takes, from filling out the form to actually signing can be a 60 to 90-day process.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit again. I know you guys both had some big dreams when you were younger, had some pretty specific goals with a PhD program, being a pilot. You're a long ways from those goals. Is there any regret with that? If you could go back and do it all over again, would you rather be where you are today, or would you rather chase those dreams you had early on?
No regrets at all. I think we're living the dream. I mean, we have a beautiful company. It's still the early days. I think, maybe if you think about regrets you have is to maybe not, sometime during the times where maybe you didn't believe it enough in you, maybe today looking back and tell yourself to the, young men or young women you were out is that, hey, don't worry, everything's going to turn out great. Stay resilient, be focused. Stay strong. Surround yourself with the right people. The road's not gonna be easy, but even if it's a bumpy ride, it's worth it. And that's the way personally I look at the past, the present, and the future. And often if you focus on the past, it's like a stuck newspaper. You cannot change the headlines. You cannot change anything. The only thing you can do is to learn from it and change the course of your actions for the future, and this will likely impact your life in the future or your business or whatever current stage in your life you are at. But no regrets at all for sure. I can still become a pilot when I can still try to sell water or oil. Who knows?
I don't know about a pilot. This is a debate that we have. Damien still dreams of getting his pilot's license, and I said this is the one thing that I forbid him to do. There's a reason why you can't get life insurance if you have your pilot's license. I'll get him a very nice flight simulator, but I think that's about as far as we'll go with flying.
Well, Jess, what about you? Do you ever regret not pursuing your PhD?
No, never. Of course, at the time it was devastating, right? Like I really had this one school that I wanted to get into my whole life. Like I had been working towards this. I loved science. I worked in rat labs in school, dissecting rat brains. Like I had done all this work to get into this program. But, looking back, if I wouldn't have gotten rejected from that school, I wouldn't have joined the corporate world. If I didn't join the corporate world, I wouldn't have gotten this experience in recruiting and with HR. And, especially with this company, I would have probably never moved to New York City if they hadn't have, I had never wanted to live in New York City. It's just they asked me and I was like, sure, why not? But it's never something that I thought about before. So I would have never met Damien if I wouldn't have moved to New York. Like we wouldn't have gone on this world tour together, it all. And then the coin flip that ended up bringing us to Poland. Now we're in Denver. Like we have a family, we have 2 kids, like all of these things. Like if I would have gotten into that PhD program, my life would look very different today. And I love how things have turned out and I have absolutely zero regrets. So, in the moment, of course, things can feel devastating or really upsetting when life doesn't go the way that you planned, but you just need to make the most of the options that you have and keep, moving forward. And you never know where that will bring you. You could never foresee, that day that you get the rejection letter in the mail from this college, how that would, impact and lead you to now having a beautiful family and a wonderful business and all of this, incredible life experience of having traveled the world. Like how would I have ever thought that one thing would have gotten me to where we are today?
Oh man, that's awesome. I know, with every podcast, I have to come up with a title, and there's just so many. I just listening to your story, the risk you've taken, the success you've had, the coin flip, the decisions, and how everything has come together. Man, it's just such an incredible story. So I know you guys bring a lot of really unique experiences, a lot of unique expertise. Like I keep going back to the lemonade stand you had and the work that you put into that. Damien, your experience with taking your education so seriously and growing up in a family that pushed you like that, the entrepreneurial spirit, both of your attention to detail, your commitment to that customer experience and taking care of customers. If you guys had to boil it down to like one key thing that was the most important thing that has made you successful, what do you think it would be?
I have this phrase, this, I don't know if we want to call it a life motto or whatever it may be, that, I really I don't know if I probably wasn't the first one that ever said it, but it's something that I thought of and really resonated with me when I was in college, and it stuck with me until today, which is never settle for mediocrity. Anything that you do, you need to do it 110%, which is, really cliche, of course, as everyone says, but really everything that we do, like we do it fully. Like we never want to be mediocre business owners. We don't want to be mediocre bosses. I don't want to be a mediocre wife. I don't want to be a mediocre mom. Like I just want to be the absolute best that we can be. And in order to do that, you have to put the time, the effort, the blood, the sweat, the tears, and really like give it your all. Like I don't want to ever look back and be like, oh, I could have done better at that, or I could have tried harder. I mean, we really are focused on, we want to be the best hospitality company in the United States. I mean, we don't want to live life halfway, right? So I think that's something that has resonated with us. Even like, I think back when we were doing construction, like Damien and I would get in so many arguments because we'd get like, an IKEA something that we'd get built and you realize like 75 or 90% of the way in that like the thing is flipped the wrong way and you have to then deconstruct it because you've installed something incorrectly. And I'm like exhausted at this point and hungry, and it's like I'm cold and I want to go home. And Damien would be like, no, like we can't do this like mediocre. Like we can't set this up. We have to take it all apart and then rebuild it so it's done correctly. And I get
But it's done correctly because the next day we had a be done, and
I was fine.
it
The
would
thing
just
flipped backwards,
have, our deadline ourselves, like this needs to be done and ready today. But yeah,
but to perfection, So just to say, like, even from the smallest thing of putting together a piece of IKEA furniture, even though it's hard, even though you're hungry and it's cold and whatever, it's just like you got to do it. You just got to suck it up and do it 100%, no matter what.
Oh man.
never take a no for final answer or an answer. There's always a workaround and there's always a solution. And this is where it takes a lot of creativity and, you need to really think truly through how can you create yourself a workaround to make half of it, a part of it working to accomplish your goals. And that's very important when you build something like this with nothing. You need to be able to be solution oriented, and that the no actually should motivate you to turn it into a maybe or a yes. There's so many examples by building this place, but as of today with the technology we use, there's always a workaround, and if there is, it might take some time, but you need to stick to it and work through it.
Man, good stuff, and a great story again. I just can't believe all the things I'm hearing. I'm learning a lot from you guys. Is there an opinion that you once held strongly that you've changed based on your experiences?
Yes, we have a specific we have a specific mission, and I thought I could trust everyone. I thought that everyone wants to do good. Everyone wants to be a part of this, but a lot of motivations are so different from the people you have jumping with you in that bandwagon or even assisting you. And so my opinion has changed a little bit on, well, more like before I give too much trust from the first minute, I need to be a bit more cautious on the end goals. And the end goals for the people who we surround ourselves are very different. Some people want all of the money. Some people want the title. Some people want all of the benefits, but not want to work, right? Some people want it all, but don't want to deal with responsibilities that come with it. So I'm giving a broad example here, but as of today, we still want to trust people very quickly. Let's do it. We're very motivated, ambitious, but sometimes slow down and learn how to analyze what really people want out of this, and that's key to surround yourself with the right people so you can create your dream team.
Man, good stuff.
I completely agree with Damien. I think my default position used to be to trust people. And now it's a little bit more like, you should earn our trust. We had an experience very early on. Our GC had introduced us to a local business owner. And he had a float spa concept, right? So one of those deprivation tanks. And our GC had done a lot of construction for this gentleman before. So introduced us. We had some beers with him. We thought we were two fellow business owners. And so we were talking to him about our concept and all of these things. And at his float spa, he had this room that had a sauna and it had a tub in it. And so we asked him, we're still doing construction. Can we come and test our beer bath infusions in your tub and do the sauna and have a beer in your sauna and do the bath infusion in your tub and just test everything out? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. We think he's being very generous, right? So we go to his location. We end up bringing our bath infusion and he's asking questions. We think that he's just curious. So we tell him how we make our bath infusion. So we tell him he's asking all these very specific questions, which we didn't think anything about. We're naive. We're in our 20s. We're just oh, this guy's so friendly. So we ended up telling him all of these things. And before you know it, we see that he's advertising a beer bath in his as part of the experience. Fortunately, he didn't have a liquor license, so you couldn't drink beer, but he had basically taken everything that we told him about the bath infusions for the tubs and was now marketing this as a beer bath experience at his spa. And then our GC, come to find out, tells us like, oh yeah, this is kind of his like MO. It's something that he calls R&D, rip off and duplicate, that he likes to, get ideas from other business owners and then duplicate it. So, fortunately, nothing came of that. He ended up closing his float spa because, he's, I think, one of those people that has many ideas and none of them, fully executed. So at the end, it didn't really end up impacting us, but it made us think like a little more carefully when people are curious, asking us questions, like wanting to be very friendly with us. They have to earn our trust a little before we start telling them our secret sauce.
Yeah, there's probably very few people that can bring the level of detail and commitment to execution that you guys do. So competition's probably going to be light for a while.
We hope, but you never know. Someone with deeper pockets can come and open many of these. But that's what I always tell Damien is, we put a lot of intention into the customer journey, the guest experience, the hospitality aspect, that even if someone has a beer spa and maybe they offer the services cheaper than us, they're certainly not going to have a 4.9 rating on Google, and the experience isn't going to be as good as what we offer. So, hopefully we have that going for us.
Sounds good. What do you have any tips or tricks for a young entrepreneur that wants to pursue a dream the way that you guys have, that maybe doesn't have an idea yet but knows that they want to chase that entrepreneurial dream? What tips would you have for them?
Yeah, if you don't have an idea, stay curious. Sell your curiosity, really try to dig into industries and really don't be afraid to look into even boring stuff. I think it has never been, I mean, you might be hearing that everywhere now, but it has never been so easy to start a business. Now, of course, it has never been so difficult to stay in business. Let's not forget this, because technology, because the access to capital, credit cards, all of that are pretty easy to access if you are responsible, right? And if you're curious, and if you want to spend the time to self-teach yourself those skills. So stay curious. The idea will likely come. Stay focused. Stay disciplined. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. So if you have some challenges with discipline, maybe self-teach yourself. Can you wake up every morning at 7 a.m. and run 2 miles, right? Or 1 mile? Just as those little exercises that really self-teach yourself a lot about it. And mainly, I think you need to have the taste of the efforts. You can't have an idea, talk about it, and not and try to do it without putting a lot of efforts into it. At the beginning, we were working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Now we have a family. We need to manage the kids and all of that. So how do you manage these efforts? At the beginning, if you're just by yourself, put as much efforts as possible to make your dream come true. That's often, the thirst of doing business, creating relationship, cutting deals. It really depends of your personality, being creative, finishing your portfolio. You need to put as much effort as possible. And whenever you say, no, I'm going to do that tomorrow, no, next week, no, next month, that's the opportunity you missed to finish it today, to show to the world that you've done something that you want to show and showcase to the world. And so the taste of the efforts, the willingness to suffer through those efforts is very important. You don't need to suffer physically, don't get me wrong. It just, you need to be okay with the efforts you're gonna put into this.
I have three quick things. The first is make sure that there is a need for this idea in the market. We hear a lot about people starting businesses out of their passion. And while passion is certainly important, you also need to make sure that there is a genuine need for this in the world. I'll use the example of, in Denver, we have a ton of Mexican restaurants and a ton of taco shops in specific. And, there have been several people that have recently decided to open up new taco shops because it's something that they're passionate about. Maybe it's in their, family history. Their grandmother was Mexican, or they've, had this one taco recipe that they really loved, but I can't tell you how many times that these taco shops have opened and very quickly closed because we don't need another taco shop in Denver. Like, we have so many of them already. So even if it's something that you're really passionate about, or you love this taco recipe and you think that the world is going to fall in love with it, like, do we really need another one of these right now? Are you solving something? We're passionate about hospitality and wellness, but we also thought through, like, is a beer spa, as a social wellness experience, something that people need? And the answer that we came to was yes. But oftentimes I feel like people follow their passion without really analyzing, like, is this something that is needed in the market? It is now the right time to do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is always start with your MVP, or your minimum viable product. We talked about that a lot when we were starting the spa. We had all of these big ideas of, like, for the bath infusions, we wanted to have an iPad, and the guests could say, like, how they were feeling that day. Like, they were stressed, or they this, and they really like these scent profiles. And we would custom blend a bath infusion for their experience that would be in their tub. And then we're like, whoa, we're getting, like, really complicated. We don't even know if people want to bathe in a beer bath to begin with. Like, let's just have one bath infusion. That's what they get. They don't get an option for it. Like, we're making this way too complex. And then if we see that it works, we can get feedback from guests and, like, would you like multiple options? Would you like to curate your own? And then we can adapt from there. But, like, don't get too complex with it. At a certain point, though, like a brick and mortar, like, you have to do the construction. So you can only get so minimal with an Oakwell Beer Spa, but especially things like if you're creating some sort of service or an online based business or an e-commerce store, like, you don't need to have 100 SKUs to launch. Like, launch with 5 things, see how it works, get feedback, and expand from there. So always focus on minimal viable product, because as entrepreneurs, we can often get, like, way ahead of ourselves and, like, have these really big dreams, and then we end up trying to execute too many things at once. Whereas you should just keep it simple at the beginning. And then my third is just think about who you want to do this business with. I don't think any successful business has done it alone. And so whether that is a friend, whether that's your spouse, whether that's a business mentor, just you're going to need to surround yourself with people that can provide advice and expertise. No matter how smart you are, you're going to need other people to lean on, even if it's just for support. I mean, Damien and I wouldn't be able to, I don't think that we would ever be able to do this on our own. We both bring different things to the table. And when times get tough, it's really important to have someone that you can lean on and that you can talk to about the struggles. And especially if you're in a relationship, like if you're married or you have a girlfriend and you're about to, like, embark on this kind of journey, like, make sure they're as bought in as you are, because it can really put a strain on the relationship if one person is, like, really crazy into this business and they're spending all their time on it. And then let's say the other one is still, like, working a 9 to 5, and then they're getting frustrated why you're not at home to spend time with them and all these things. So just make sure that, like, you and your partner, your person, are on the same page with what you're about to embark on.
Man, yeah, there's some great advice there. And man, we might have to have you guys on for a follow-up. Your story deserves a lot more attention. This is just so cool. I'm so excited for you. But I want to honor your time and kind of wrap things up here. So a question that I ask every guest: do you guys practice a particular faith tradition? And if so, how has that affected your journey?
No, we do not practice, or at least, I mean, I speak for both of us here, but we don't practice a specific faith. I grew up, I was raised Catholic. I was forced into it at a very young age. I was forced to go to Catholic school. So I was going to church once a week with my school, and then once on Sunday with my family. And, I was a very independent child that wanted to do my own thing. And so I think being pressured into it at such a young age made me kind of shy away from it. So no, we really don't follow any sort of, faith or religion. However, I do believe in karma and the greater good, and, do unto others as you would want to have done to yourself, right? So some of that, of course, mirrors a lot of things that you'll find in religions. But I think just, doing good in the community and not chasing money, just wanting to do the right thing, and good things will come to you.
Yeah, I mean, my faith, I believe in a bigger power, someone watching us up top, and that's personal to me. I grew up within uh, three religions, the most important three religions in a very multicultural environment. So I have my own faith, and it's to do good for our team, or family, my family, and of course the community around that are supporting our business. I think you get the reward. You shouldn't do it for the reward, but I think when you do good often, you get back the goodness you've spread for the people that you've helped along the journey. I think often people remember what you've done bad. They don't often remember what you've done good, but it's better to stay focused on doing good, and that's my own faith.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank
Is there anybody that you'd like to see on this show? Somebody with a unique story, a unique business that you'd like to learn more about?
Oh,
It's a good question. We'd have to think about it, I think. Get back to you. We're so focused, we're like oblivious to what is going on in the outside world, I feel like. We listen to business podcasts like How I Built This. If you've ever listened to that before with Guy Raz, that got us through our construction days. We'd have that on the loudspeaker, listening to these people's stories. But man, we're so heads down right now with the business that we don't really know what's going on much out there.
Yeah, you've got enough on your hands with this blooming business, a new success, the sacrifice you put in to get there, and a growing family. It sounds like you guys have your hands full. So,
yes, it's just the beginning.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for giving us the time today. You really have an incredible story. It sounds like you have an incredible product. I'm really looking forward to checking it out myself. I'm going to move that up on the priority list. We'll make sure we get down there to check it out. And there's just a lot that can be learned from your experience and your story. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we can't wait to host you next time you're in Denver.
Wonderful. And thank you guys for joining us here on From the Ground Up Show. Again, help me out, share, follow, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, social media, or YouTube. If you guys can leave us a 5-star review or leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform, that helps a lot. Check out our merch store, shop.fromthegroundupshow.com. Until next time, keep grinding.